It is tip-off a week before the NBA draft. We come to you live from Park City, Utah, but soon enough we'll be in New York City for the NBA draft. Ton of items, lots of news, lots of options, and lots of questions coming in. We'll try to get all of those to you coming up next on tip-off. Talking to someone yesterday who was making fun of the glare and the bad drum stuff. You're right. This is me having coffee with you in the morning. We're just having coffee in the morning, hanging out. Part 2 of the Chad Ford podcast will come up. You guys are incredible. You guys are incredible. I late last night checked did a search on @Chad Ford. Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. There might have been 400 messages on his timeline yesterday. You guys are incredible. But that's why he comes on. Thank you. It's great. Hopefully, the fact that I put in the work, understand the draft, he enjoys that more than some of his other interviews, and couple that with just kind of the respect you guys show him. Amazing. If you have not caught part 1 of that podcast, I would suggest stop doing what you do, listening to this, and go to that immediately. It's much better than anything I'm going to give you today. Then come back to this. And then don't hate me for the way it ends. Ironically enough, guys, that actually was really the natural breaking point. We discussed that potential trade he brings up for long enough that I didn't have another breaking point. So it just seemed like a really logical way. Yeah, I like doing it too. I'll admit it. All right, I hope you guys are great. Let me just start. There's a ton of questions, and I think the questions hit on almost everything. And so I'll try to touch on all of the things that I have written down to my right, which is lengthy, and then if I can, I will try to get to all your questions. I've got a little golf tournament with my daughter. It's Daddy-Daughter Day, so I've got to get that done. One note: everybody always asks me when they come to Park City for places to eat. Last night, I found a new place at the bottom of Main Street called Buena Vita. It's Italian. It's reasonably priced, and it's terrific. And I don't know anybody there. Fred's the waiter. I'm not giving a free plug or anything. People ask me all the time, and I'm just telling you, that was great. Really nice day yesterday, by the way, at the Larry H. Miller Classic, raising a lot of money for um, the Larry H. Miller charities, and good understanding of just how large this company really is and how far it advances. So had a nice day there. All right, let's get to the notes I have for you today. Lots of news yesterday. Randy Rigby mentioned that Raul Neto was in town. Some clandestine reporter on Twitter had that they saw he and Johnny Bryant at dinner. I think it's interesting he was in town. I don't want to overplay it, but I got to admit, I think it's pretty interesting. Take one, he is part of the options that the Jazz have going into this deadline or excuse me, going into this draft, and I think the fact that they brought him in to take a closer look and see where he was and what was going on with him tells you he's still a viable plan. I think it also tells you that he also is still a part of the options. And I don't know what those are. I mean, I threw out the scenario at some point if you draft Smart at 5, you move Trey and you bring Neto back in as backup. You've become very young, but now you're big and small. I think the only problem for Neto is that the combination of Trey and Neto is not great just because of the fact that they are both so undersized. And so that's the only thought I have on those two. But he's important. Rigby also said something I think we know, that Alex Jensen and Johnny Bryant are under contract. I still think it hasn't been defined, this whole story about Mike Wells and Toledo. Nothing's been officially released, but I was just looking at his bio. I would think, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I'll hold back on that. All right. Walt Perrin came out on Marcus Smart and kind of was open, like, hey, and I pretty much told you guys this. It must have been an interesting day yesterday, because if you'd listened to Tip Off all the time, every news item that came out, you were like, oh, I already knew that. The Walt Perrin came out and basically said, hey, I've contacted Marcus Smart's agent 3 or 4 times, and we've tried to get him in, and he won't come in. They did meet in Chicago and did interview in Chicago, so I thought that was a little interesting note there that Walt threw out there in regards to Marcus Smart. And basically, we're willing to draft him if we like him. There's clearly something that's not kosher in this relationship between the Jazz and Smart. It would be a tough way for a relation to start. It might be as simple as that, hey, you know what, you have Trey Burke, and we don't want to have to come in a place where there's Trey Burke. But clearly something's not totally kosher. The other one was interesting that they're still trying to get Dante Exum in. Uh, I just watched the Draft Express video of Exum against the U19 US. You can see where the love is. It's nerve-wracking that he turns an ankle, only plays 11 minutes in that game, and most of his success then comes against lesser opponents. But you can see, but I don't know if you should criticize him. He averages 22 points in the next 4 games of the U19. If you go put one of these other top prospects in that, that's exactly what they would have done too. So I'm not sure that you really can criticize him for that in the process. So and also thing that Walt Perrin pointed out, which I wasn't totally aware of, was that um, the league wants these guys in Monday night or Tuesday morning. I'll be there Tuesday morning in New York and staying at the same hotel the players, so you never know. We might have some interesting conversations, little notes. You can follow me on Twitter, and I'll be jumping on 1280 and 97.5. The whole team. Green room invites should be out soon, so that's worth noting. Shoot, I had one other thing I was going to add on there. All right. Well, I think that's kind of those were the news items yesterday. There seemed to be a lot of them. Randall was in for his workout yesterday. I mean, he should be in the conversation, guys. He's the elite rebounder of the group. He can really score down low. He's pretty. He does a lot of the same things that Cantor and Favors already do. And I'm not sure how much post up we're going to run with Quinn Snyder in this upcoming year. So I'm not sure how much he matches, but he should be in the conversation. He's a wonderful young man. He's really powerful and strong, and he should be in this conversation. I mean, when we're talking about 5 as Exum, Gordon, Vonleh, it should be Exum, Gordon, Vonleh, Smart, Randall. And I think all of the options are open. That would be the number one takeaway I have is that there's people at this golf thing I met yesterday. What are we going to do? I don't think the Jazz can answer that question right now. And to the credit of Dennis Lindsay, what I love about the way they're approaching this is, guys, we're looking for the best player. Ignore what our roster has. Ignore what's on the roster right now, and let's analyze these players as they are and who's the best player. Then, after that, in the last 24 hours or last 36 hours or last 48 hours, whatever, you can start to say, okay, now is this a duplication? But let's take the time. And what is our future with, let's say, he's really the exact same as Cantor. Okay, well, what's our future with Cantor? Where are they in the timelines of progression? He's really the exact same as Alec Burks. Okay, well then what's the timeline of the progression? He's the same as he's better than Trey, whatever it might be, or we think Trey's better than him. But take the time to start the analysis at the point of ignoring that and just evaluating who's the best player. I'm watching Aaron Gordon right now. I do love him, but I would say it's a little unnerving that the amount of time in that Duke game this early in the year, he just is absent. I mean, he's on the floor, but he's just not having. He's not. He has no offensive impact. He takes one shot in the entire game. I think I finished Duke last night. Maybe I didn't. I fell asleep while on the computer last night at 1. No, I did not finish Duke. I just looked at 11:42 left. But when I suddenly was eyes closed facing the computer at 1 a.m. last night, I decided I probably should go to bed. So I've got some of that game left. I got a bunch of others. I don't know how I'm going to get done by Monday, but I'm going to try to get Aaron Gordon done this weekend somehow. But I mean, the thing on all these guys is that they're 18 years old. They're all pups. They're ways away from helping a team win. I know that the instinct is to love these guys and be so. They're ways away. They're 3 and 4 years away from helping you win. I mean, just go look at the history of the NBA and find me the players that at 18 and 19 years old have ever helped you win. You can't do it. I mean, even go to LeBron, and these guys aren't LeBron, and they aren't Durant, and they aren't Michael, and they aren't Magic, and they aren't Larry. And Michael and Larry were not 18 and 19 years old, and nor was Michael. Okay, guys, there's no scenario where these guys are helping you win probably until 2017 at all. And that's probably only a little bit. Are you willing to do that? And for that reason, you might, Chad Ford will bring this up in part 2 of the podcast. I probably should talk about more tomorrow. I think the pick's movable, depending what your timeline is. Now, the problem is when you look around the league, there just aren't that many pieces that make sense. What I don't know if Atlanta's suddenly willing to move Al Horford. What you're looking for is a team going in one direction and a player going in another direction. And who? Kevin Love, right? Okay, so that's obvious. But where else does that exist in this league? Rondo in Boston, maybe. Atlanta and Horford. Orlando and Aflalo. Minnesota and Love. I'm not sure I can find that many other ones. Minnesota and Pekovic. What do you think of that? What do you think of Pekovic? Not quite how I think I envision us playing under Quinn Snyder, but what's your thought on that? I mean, if Minnesota's undoing this thing, what about Rubio? Rubio's come out and said we need a better leader than Kevin Love. Now, is there a rift there between those two? And if you're trying to keep Kevin Love, is that how you do it? I just and let me throw this scenario at you. I brought this up yesterday on Vonleh, um, and actually I'm going to retract a comment I made a little bit yesterday. I made the comment that I think Vonleh at this age is better than Favors and Cantor. Um, Cantor's hard because he was playing international experience, so I probably should not have made that comparison. Vonleh is better offensively than Favors was at the same age of 18 years old. Worth mentioning, though, Favors' ACC tournament at the end of his Georgia Tech year was awesome. Was awesome. I mean, but it's a good point on Favors. I feel like this is the year. This is our year with Favors where we finally get who he is. New coach, a little bit probably a different system. He understands the game. Even first year he played full minutes last year. This is kind of the next jump for Favors. Hopefully he takes a jump. But that's year 5 or year 4? Year 5, right? For Derek. That's what we're talking about with 18-year-old kids. And the point I would even bring up here that I kind of brought up yesterday, if the guy we draft, let's say we draft Dante Exum, and let's say he's great. Just watch this video. It's got a chance. I like this draft. Okay? Let's say he's got a chance to be great. He actually backs up your timetable. Because he's not going to be great till 21 or 22, and now he's your best player. So he backs up the timetable. Now we're talking about probably not winning, and we may not be winning again until 2017, 2018 anyway. But if you draft a guy and he's your best player, it backs up your timetable. Washington with John Wall is probably a pretty good example of this, right? Wall's their best player. He's in his 4th year this year. They finally clicked. That was the number 1 pick, and he's pretty special. But they kept trying to do things here for the last years. And finally, after 4 years of it with Wall, maybe 5, 4, I think. Gordon Hayward's finished his 4th year going to his 5th, right? It's funny with all the numbers that I'm not good at things like this. With Washington, they tried all these different things, and what they finally do, they finally surrounded them with veterans, right? Nene, Gortat, Ariza, took the young kid Bradley Beal. I think that's the model. Wall, Favors, and Hayward were all the same draft. So I think they're all 4th year going into 5th. That's my thought. Someone on the chat room tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain I'm right on that. So let's say you get Exum, and Exum's our Wall, and he's our best player. We're 4 years before this thing. Now, how does that work? And maybe that is really the reality. You get this piece here. He becomes a tower. He's ready to be a tower to the ski lift in 4 years. At that point, Hayward and Favors are 8 and 9 year veterans. They're really veterans. They're one of them. You've probably moved some of the other guys in the process to acquire the other tower, and you're ready to go. So I think that's the progression we're walking down. And if you get one of these guys and they're great, then it backs it up a tiny bit. That's where I see this going, by the way. I kind of see this pick, if we take it, as Tower 1. The evolution of Hayward and Favors and Burks. I want to put Alec in there. I think Alec's got a chance to. I loved Alec on draft day. have been disappointed with the way he dealt with a bunch of stuff here, and then loved him by the way he dealt with the end of the year last year. And I think the floor opens up for him more with Quinn. I think he's the big winner here. Trey, I just don't know yet. I've said this from the very beginning. It's so interesting, by the way, doing this. If I don't mention someone, people feel like means I'm negative about him. Trey, from the very beginning, I've said you cannot evaluate his. He's going to shoot 39%. He's going to average 12 points and 5 assists. That's what point guards do that aren't the number one pick, that are under the age, that are 20 years old. They're 2 years of experience or less. That's what they do. If you follow this podcast, which I hope you do regularly, I mean, we just laid it out. We looked at all of them, who they are. And the more important thing is what they do their rookie year has absolutely nothing that lies out to what makes them better in the future. DJ Augustine and Johnny Flynn were two of the best non-number one picks, top 15, top 10 pick point guards who only spent 2 years in college. Lillard doesn't count in this mix. Lillard had spent 4 years. His body was fully formed. His game's fully formed. He was ready to go. But rookie point guards go 12, 5, 40, 33. Boom. Thank you, Trey Burke, for just absolutely following the numbers. It was beautiful of you to do. I love that. Now I have no idea what kind of player he's going to be yet, which makes it hard. Now what's hard about Trey Burke and Marcus Smart is that I think now Marcus Smart can't shoot. Marcus Smart last year, I love Draft Express does some great stuff on this. 28% on jump shots in the half court last year was Marcus Smart. However, Marcus Smart finished and 30% on catch and shoot in the perimeter and 28% on the dribble for Marcus Smart last year. Okay, that's not good shooting. Now remember, league average is only 39% on those things in the NBA, so he's below it by a lot, but it's not like you usually shoot 50. However, Marcus Smart does two things that Trey Burke doesn't do. Marcus Smart is a rim finisher at 57%, one of the best in the NBA, and 21% of his half-court possessions he got fouled. Okay? They're very different players. Could play together, or you could look on the draft board at 5 and say, you know what, last year if Smart was out, we would have had him higher than Trey. We still have him higher than Trey. We're gonna go that direction, and we're gonna see how they fit together, and if not, we'll make a move. Or I don't know the answer to this. What does Trey in 23 get you? Then you're really young. But does Trey in 23 get you to 9? Does Trey and you send Sarek to Europe and then he comes back a little bit later? I don't know. The options are everywhere, guys. You could trade 5, and I just showed you why it makes sense. You could draft Smart, even though they have had no workout, and trade Trey. You could trade whatever Chad Ford said in the podcast. Well, sure, we'll talk about it tomorrow. You could take 5, and then I don't know, take 23 and couple it with the Warriors pick next year and try to get up. Or let someone else get in and get out. It's too many young guys at some point. And there's questions on so much stuff. Someone said to me the other day, if Zach LaVine, who played at UCLA, had kind of a subpar year, didn't match Alfred's system, started him at point, then didn't like him, bounced him around. He kind of was on the floor, didn't do a lot, did everything in 33% of his possessions were in transition. If he was an incredible athlete, blew the combine away this year, so if you know who he is. If Zach LaVine had been in Australia this year and played Australian high school basketball and nothing else, where would he be on the draft board? With that kind of athleticism. Would he be 4, like Dante Exum? Right? How big a difference really is there? Here's the other one. Everyone talks about going to get Jabbar. Do you believe that Embiid, Wiggins, and Parker are just balls out better than everyone else? Do you believe those 3? There are people that believe that. There are people that don't. Do you believe those 3 are just better than everyone else? Because if you believe those 3 are the cat's meow and the ass kickers they might be, then you trade the house and you go get one of them. That's what this league's about. This league is about ski towers. You can give me all this team crap. There's 3 Hall of Famers on San Antonio. Right? And then their young players were better than the aging Hall of Famer in Ray Allen and whomever else is on that team. Okay? So if you believe, then that's the other option. If the other option is if you believe one of those three is that good, you go take O.J. Mayo's contract, you take Larry Sanders' contract, you take Carlos Delfino's contract, you take them all, and you go get that guy. That's the other option. And now, by the way, that guy's 19, and you've got your first tower, and we're on the John Wall path again. Quite frankly, I actually have a hard time when I play around this game, and I have spreadsheets everywhere that have done this in numerous ways and figure. I have a very hard time, just my personal thing, having any time where we get anywhere between 417, 18. That's 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18. 4 seasons. I think that's the non-skipping steps process. And even if some things come together and you pull the next Kevin Love and you have, let's say it all goes perfectly, you've gotten Jabari Parker and he can score 20 points a game, and the next version of Kevin Love, James Harden, you've grabbed, and you have Hayward and Favors. Okay, then maybe I get us at 16, 17, right? Because Jabari's not ready to win for a few years. Unless he's Carmelo. Unless he's really, really, maybe he's that good. But that's part of the process. Are people ready for that? I have a ton of other news. Let me quickly run through it, and then I'll try to get to your question. Lakers are trying to schedule a head-to-head with Marcus Smart and Peyton, the kid out of Louisiana Lafayette. Tells you a lot about where Peyton is on the draft board, if that is true. Kings, Nuggets, Wolves, and Warriors. Listen to that again. Kings, Nuggets, Wolves, Warriors. Watched a Doug McDermott, Nick Stauskas workout. What team does not belong in that group? The Warriors. They don't have a first-round draft pick. Why are they at that workout? Denver supposedly is making a run for Kevin Love. Does everybody realize how absolutely crazy this offseason is going to be? Kevin Love, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and Chris Bosh are all out there. Everyone talked about the year of free agency a few years ago. This one is going to kick its butt. Yeah, I've had like 3 or 4 espressos today. I'm ready to go. And it's Daddy-Daughter Day, and there's nothing better than Daddy-Daughter Day. Anybody who reports a sign and trade possibility of a restricted free agent like Gordon Hayward and Eric Bledsoe, write their name down and don't forget it. It's not possible. Dario Saric is still undecided if he's playing in the NBA next year, by the way, when you look at him. Lots of praise for Nick Stauskas right now. I've talked to 2 or 3 scouts who think he's actually as good as any of these guys being talked about in after the top 3. Now, I'm actually surprised he hasn't come in for a workout for 5. I really am a little bit. You know what? If you look at him, off the catch and shoot, 49% last year. Off the dribble, 38%. Both of them are very high. Number 1 point per jump shooter of the shooting guards. Jordan Adams is certainly an interesting one. We'll see what plays with him. And keep an eye on Spencer Dinwiddie, the who played point guard, shooting guard for Colorado and ACL'd. I think he's pretty interesting. And CJ Wilcox, I still think he's in play at 23. I know it's dropping all the time. All right, let me see what I can do. I'd never go. There's a little chat room that goes on. The question and answers are much better. For some reason, people can't figure out how to put the questions in the question and answer. I've got 5 minutes, so let me run through these. From Taylor Cottrell, you touched on it yesterday. How does Rudy figure in all this? Tell us more what you think about Vonleh, Rudy would fit together. I talked to Rudy yesterday. He's in town. His appendicitis. He's doing fine. He's able to lift some weights. He'll be able to play basketball shortly. I think Rudy's a part of this equation. Will Quinn Snyder be coaching the Jazz Summer League team this year? I don't know the answer to that. I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it. I'm just going to say it that. I think somebody else will. From David Burnett. With so many picks in this year's draft, I don't see the Jazz signing all of them. Do you expect the Jazz to make some kind of trade or future picks? What is the most likely scenario? I don't know the most likely scenario, but I think it would be very unlikely if we entered into training camp or even summer league with all 3 picks. From Chad, after listening to the last 2 days of podcasts, I'm cooled on Jabari and high on Vonleh. Reports are if the Jazz move up, it's to take Jabari. Given the high cost of moving up, it's possible at all. Would you rather stay at 5 or give up valuable assets to get Jabari? I would trade the entire roster for Wiggins, but sounds like no matter the spot, they would take Jabari. I think that's probably true. I think Jabari may be ahead of Wiggins on some of the draft boards. He can score 20 in this league. Jabari's going to score 20 in this league, and then if you believe he's a good kid, which most people do, you figure he'll figure out how to win. So I think that that's you got to remember that. What you've got to believe Vonleh, Gordon, Smart, who am I forgetting? Exum, all are terrific. All have amazing skills. All have question marks. As I've said numerous times in this draft, the concept it's a great draft is still accurate because all of those great skills and talents are there. But there are some questions of how they all play out. If you don't believe, if you believe Jabari is, as I said earlier, if you believe Jabari is a no-brainer and a non-miss, then you go get him if you can. I mean, the price is going to be outrageous, but if you can do it, you go get him. If you really believe that he's the piece for the future, and um, but I agree with you. I think how good I think some of these guys below can be that cost is outrageous. With Vonleh's foot speed and outside shot, would you be able to play a three? No, he would never from Jackson. And actually, I think there's a question on Vonleh of whether you can run with him. You know, the question on Vonleh is at this big size, at this young age, will you be able to run with him if he's on your team? Yeah, that's an overestimation of his athleticism by Jackson. From Jonathan Hales, what do you think of this? I'd rather, by the way, in the future that all these questions go up on the. I'm just doing this a one time. Please try to put these in the Q&A section. It's better for all the listeners. Jonathan Hales, what do you think of? We draft Smart and Exum, then trade Cannon in the 23rd and 35 to Boston for number 6, and we get Aaron Gordon and Noah Vonleh. Well, I don't know if Cantor 23 and 35 get you to 6. That would be the first thing. Two, let's make sure we understand where we think Cantor is and what kind of player he would be under Quinn's system if we open him up a little bit before we trade him, but that's possible. It's interesting that the guys we've wanted all this time, now we've seen him, we fall in love with the other guys. But I think then you have two pieces, and you're waiting for two fabulous pieces to develop, and there's some legitimacy to that. You have been talking about tiers. What tier would Cantor and Burks have been in comparison in this year's draft? With so many tier 2 players, maybe Cantor or Burks plus 23 gets you 6, 7, 8. So same concept. I had somebody say to me yesterday, I don't think there's anybody in this draft better than Alec Burks is right now. I find that a little hard, but that's, but what you're saying there is basically the guy's played 3 years in the NBA, and 3 years in the NBA makes him a better player today than any of those players are 3 years behind. I think that's a stretch. But I think Alec Burks could have a pretty good year. I'm still high on Burks. I loved him in that draft. Um, I'm still really high on Enes Kanter as an offensive player in the NBA. Defensively, I'm not sure. But let's let Quinn look at him and figure out whether Quinn thinks he can figure out some way to make him a viable defensive player. I think the bigger issue on all of this is can we play with tempo? We've got to find a way to play with tempo. Last year we were basically 30th in the league in tempo. We used the most possessions in the NBA in the final 12 seconds of the shot clock. We cannot do that again. And part of that is that Favors and Cantor didn't run the floor and Trey didn't push the tempo. Alec Burks picked up our tempo. That's why I'd be really reticent to move Alec Burks. All right, have a good one, guys. Part 2 of the podcast with Chad Ford will be up today, hopefully by about 10 a.m. See you.